Greeting painters, I'm Onion Knight. If you see the painting guide, you may have heard single coat or multiple single coat many times. But how and how much do you need to dilute the paint exactly? Today, we will look at how to dilute and control paint. The paint mainly used for miniature painting is acrylic paint. It varies slightly from company to company. Most paint must be fully shaken before use. Acrylic paints are mainly composed by pigment and solvent, and the components are often separate when stored. If used in separate states, the color of paint will not come out properly. In general, the paint that less coverage it is separate more often. This ballet of paint is separate state. You can see the top and bottom states are different. If this paint is shaken enough, like this, it comes back to the original color. The separated citadel paint look like this. You can see it separated from the outside as well. When you open the paint, you can see some weird liquid is floating. Likewise, after shaking enough, it will return to original paint color. So be sure to shake it enough before use. Now, apply the paint on the wet palette with a brush or stick. One of the most common mistakes of beginners is to apply this paint right away. This is not a good idea. The paint in the container is very thick, so if you apply it right away, the paint will dump and all thin detail of the model will disappear. Therefore, be sure to use it after diluting with water or medium. So, how and how much should I dilute? Normally, I dip the water in the bucket to palette with a brush and mixing. When mixing water and paint, I recommend it to use the old brush because when you mix it, the paint often penetrates into the brush, and if the paint penetrates into the brush, your brush breaks quickly. Then let's work on applying the base coat, which making for the base of color. Add a little water to the paint until it gets the consistency of the drinking yogurt. This density is just enough. If the density is darker than this, the detail disappears easily, and if the density is thinner than this, the paint does not rise well. For base coats, I recommend it use the paint that have good coverage like Citadel base paint, but layer paint are work too. You can see the diluted paint goes up very smoothly. However, if you try to get the perfect color all at once, the paint can easily clump. Painting and let it dry. Then repeat this process until you get the solid color. As you can see, using the hairdryer can dramatically shorten the drying time. This process is called multiple thin coat. It sounds cumbersome, but acrylic dry very quickly, so the actual drying time is only a few tenths of a second. Normally, repeating this process 3 or 4 times will give you the smooth and solid color. Let's do the layering this time. Add a little more water to the paint until it gets to the density of milk. After that, you can paint the part that will be highlighted. This time, the paint is much more transparent than Basecoat. When it dries, the color underneath will seem better. When the first layer is drying, it may look like a smudge, but when this smudge continues to overlap, it will turn into the smooth gradient. Dry and repeat painting until color you want come out. Continuously layering a translucent layer like this is the most common layering technique to get gradation. Repeat this operation 5 or 6 times. Next is the wash. You can use a specific paint for wash, such as citadel, shade, or contrast, but you can also use general paint. The biggest advantage of this method is that you can make the wash of a color you want. I'm going to make wash by mixing little lead with the fresh color. Add a little more water to layering density to make it like juice. You can see paint form a large drop when I move it with a brush. This is good density for wash. Now, the paint flow in along the depths of the model to creating simple shadow like shade paint. However, be aware the excessive use the wash, because it will leave stain all over the place and make it look dirty. If model paint by beginner is dirty and cloudy, this is often due to excessive use of shade paint. Now, the glazing. Glazing is a technique that can be used in various fields, such as adjusting the overall tone or erasing the border between two colors. Add more water to paint for make it density like a drinking water. That's enough. Now, gently wipe the brush with paper towel to absorb excess paint. When you draw a line on the back of your hand, only the paint that is enough to draw the transparent line should remain on the brush. This is good. In this state, painting and drying the border of two colors. Glazing is much more transparent than layering, so once or twice doesn't make a big difference. However, if you keep repeating this process, you can get such a very smooth gradation. Finally, the highlighting. Highlighting is rarely diluted because vivid color is important. Think of it as diluting only with the water left on the brush. It is better to apply the paint only the front side of the brush, not the entire brush. Afterward, gather the tip of the brush sharply using the palette or back of your hand. This way, you can sharpen the tip of the brush and wipe off excess paint. Now, let's paint the model. When painting the corner like this, you can easily get sharp highlighting by using the side of the brush. But the inner case like this is much more tricky. After collecting tip of the brush, paint carefully so that only the tip of the brush touches. That's it. Was it helpful? If you have any questions about the video, please leave the comment. Then, see you again in the next video. Thank you.